Hello everybody, you join me today driving our latest family car purchase. This is a super rare Grand Tourer. It says coupe on the V5 document, or is it a shooting brake? Who knows, but one thing's for sure, it divides opinion. People have one of two reactions when they see it. Either, oh my goodness, is that an Avantime? I love those. Or, ugh, what on earth is even that? But in my opinion, this is a car which is so incredibly bonkers, it's almost as if children designed it for children. Come on, let me show you what I'm going on about. My name's Ben, welcome to Dadcars. Chances are, if you clicked on this video, you've come for one thing and one thing only, the Avantime's party piece. So I'm not gonna leave you waiting around. Let's do that now, shall we, girls?
Yeah.
Right, say 3, 2, 1. Wow. I don't know why, but every time we do that, I get the temptation to hum the Jurassic Park theme tune.
This is cool.
What do you think, girls?
I like it.
Brilliant, isn't it?
Grab all of the
So first off, let me just really quickly run through some of the basics about these cars. If you know what an Avantime is, you probably already know this stuff. But for the benefit of everyone else, this is a 2002 Renault Avantime. This one has a 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine and is paired with this 6-speed manual gearbox. And this produces, I believe, 165 horsepower and weighs about 1,700 kilograms. Girls, we're coming up to a national speed limit. Do you want to see how fast this car is, girls? Are you ready, right? So, first gear, right, 15 miles an hour. 3, 2, 1. What do you think, girls? And that's 60. That's not bad, is it? Right, girls, we're going to shut these up now. We'll open them again a little bit later, okay? So performance-wise, I would describe this as pretty good. Don't get me wrong, you're not going to be at risk of wheel spinning those front wheels, but for general family duties, it's pretty good. And I have taken this on a bit of a longer run, and once you are up to speed, it's pretty good. Right, let's go around this roundabout. Right, more on how this drives and handles and everything later on. So a tiny bit more history on the Avantime. So the Avantime was a massive sales flop. Now, I think globally, they sold about 8,000. And in the UK, I think it was a little over 400. It was such a financial disaster, in fact, that Matra, who designed and made the Avantime for Renault at the time, they competed and won in Formula One, were able to financially get through that, but the Avantime sunk them. So that's how much of a disaster this car was. But perhaps a more memorable Formula One reference with the Avantime is for those who remember Top Gear in the glory days, because they loved the Avantime and they famously put an F1 wing on the back of it when they were trying to make the Avantime go faster than an Evo. They also put a comical front splitter on as well. But Clarkson put it on the core wall in Sub-Zero ahead of so many other cars, including the Vanquish. And that is where I think most people's love for the Avantime comes from, certainly people from my generation. Now let's talk about the looks. My wife hates the way that this car looks. For the first week that I got it, every time she come home, she would walk in the door and say, oh, I forgot that you bought that ugly car. It makes me feel sad every time I pull onto the driveway. But it's my opinion that this car is just so interesting looking. And from many angles, it still looks very fresh and modern today. Lots of people commented on my reveal video saying put some different wheels on it. And I think the wheels are something that definitely age it. Perhaps as well from the front is probably its most unflattering angle, because that's where it resembles the Espace most as well. But I think those functional vents at the front above the lights, I think that they sort of save the day and make even from the front this car look kind of cool. But at the risk of offending the Avantime Owners Club community, perhaps my most controversial opinion is that I think this looks like a car that was designed by a child. But to any parents watching this, you will not be able to unsee this once I say it. This is basically the car from Peppa Pig. You know, the episode where they hire the car and you press the button and the roof goes down. Do you remember that episode, girls? Peppa Pig with that car, yeah? And surely only a child would design a car which has got a bum on the back of it. Do you remember back when, you know, Renault's whole design language and advertising campaign was all built around that Groove Armada song? I see you, baby. Look, I'm giving it a bit of a lash in there, but honestly, genuinely, all in all, I do think that this is such an interesting looking car. And obviously, once all the windows go down, I mean, come on. Come on. In actual fact, we recently went to an event where I had my Grand Sport, which I owned at the time, which sadly I don't anymore, and this got more attention than the Grand Sport. So Avan means, I believe, ahead, you know, ahead of its time. And certainly externally, this was ahead of its time. But what about internally? Well, yeah, definitely ahead of its time as well. Like for me, sitting in here, I feel like I'm in a very early episode of Star Trek. And if you imagine there was an episode where a smaller vessel departs from the Enterprise, you know, that's what I think the Avantime would be. And sat in here, you know, it does feel like an old school projection of what the future might look like. The dash is impossibly deep. You know, it kind of feels like a massive waste of space in here internally. You know, I kind of feel like you could sort of remove this whole sort of cream section here and sit yourself a good sort of foot and a half sort of closer to the front of the vehicle, giving your rear passengers more space, or, you know, or a bigger boot maybe. But if they were looking to make something which was a projection of the future, something which was ahead of its time, you know, they got a lot of it right. Just like a modern Tesla, you have your instrument cluster in the center of the vehicle. This kind of large font, old person's calculator screen. Are you getting hot, girls? Do you want the windows down?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right, we're going slower again now, so we'll open it all back up again. But directly in front of the driver here, you do get a sort of miniature S2000 style rev gauge. This steering wheel actually feels quite nice in the hand. These seats do feel like I'm just sat on an old sofa. So comfortable. My car here is suffering from an array of sticky plastics. And as I said earlier, my wife doesn't like the way this car looks, but when she drove it, she liked sitting here as the driver and driving it around. Oh, and I love the fact that the designers of this car were making some crazy big futuristic swings, weren't they? But even they were like, well, obviously, you know, we've got to have some analog climate controls here, easy for the driver to use without taking her eyes off the road. You know, well, I mean, we can't hide that on some digital screen or something, can we? So it's Avantime by name, but it's not a van in terms of practicality. See what I did there? So let's hop into the back and let me show you some of my gripes with the practicality of this vehicle. So obviously one of the best features of an MPV is having a rear sliding door so that you can get your young children out of tight parking spaces when all the other parents have got their whopping great SUVs. You don't get that with your Avantime. What you do get instead is one of, well, must still be one of the biggest doors on a production car, and it's double hinged, because if it wasn't double hinged and you opened up this massive door, you'd end up hitting the car in the bay one over. But with it fully open, you do actually get pretty good access, particularly into the back here. But when you sit in the back, so when you get your first big disappointment from this seemingly large and practical vehicle, and that's headroom for rear passengers. So I'm 5'11" with a very long torso, and my head, the back of my head is hitting on this section here. And yeah, look, if I sit up straight, my head is touching this glass roof. Fortunately, legroom is decent. Not amazing, but decent. So that means that you can obviously just sort of slump down. While this makes these rear seats not exactly ideal for adults, it makes them even better for children, because you've got, wow, like theatre seating here on the back. They are notably higher than the front two seats, which maximises the visibility for children in the back. And you know, even little children, if they're in a child seat, they will have exceptional visibility. I can confirm that there are two sets of Isofix in the back. They are a little bit hidden and not the easiest to get to. Oh, speaking of long torsos and little legs, I need to say thank you to my friend James, JM on Cars, for giving me this brand new Porsche branded child seat. JM recently released a multipler review and I made a quick cameo in that video defending the looks of the Avantime. I'll put a link in the description below to that video if you want to go over and check it out. And I've read in several places that these are 4-seater coupe GT cars, but they're not. This is 5-seater. Well, certainly my one is here. Look, what you've got hidden over here in the boot is a central seat belt, which clicks in on both sides like so. So yeah, you can actually fit 3 people in the back of these. The next practicality disappointment though is the boot. Look, because of this stylistic choice that Renault went for, I'd say it's a disappointing size boot personally. Now you get this rather alarmingly solid parcel shelf, and at first I didn't understand why, but it's actually because you can take it out and then you can put it on the bottom so you've got a flat loading area. But the boot lip being so high does make getting larger and heavier items in a bit of a pain as well. Now, one of the main requirements for me buying this car was that I could by myself get my massive heavy Dadcars marquee in and out by myself, and I can just manage it, but it would have been a lot easier if I bought a Volvo Estate. Obviously these seats are split folding as well, and the seat cushions can actually just be taken out to maximise the amount of space you've got in here too. I forgot to mention a couple of things while we did the driving section earlier on. Miles per gallon, I'm seeing low 30s, and I'm quite impressed with that because I don't drive this around like a granny. And in actual fact, that has been a big problem that I've found with this car already, is that people assume that this car is going to be travelling slowly. So the amount of people I've had pull out at me at roundabouts just because I'm actually going around the roundabout at 25, 30 miles an hour, they quickly glance at it and think, oh yeah, look, that's just an MPV, that'll be going really slow. And then they just pull out in front of me. So that's been a bit of a nightmare. Oh, another annoying thing is it's impossible to operate this handbrake without banging your forearm awkwardly on this center console armrest. But look, it's not all bad. Let's get back to the driving. Right, girls, let's check the turning circle, shall we? Can we do this in one?
Like we did for the minute.
Oh, easily, yeah. The turning circle in this is fabulous. Now, obviously, with me buying this as a backup family car for use with my 4 young children, you know, safety was something that I had a good check online for, and I can't find any NCAP crash test for the Avantime. I can see some footage that somebody did do crash testing on these, but what I did also find was a Renault TV advert from the time period that this car was in production as well, where they're proudly crashing their entire fleet of cars at the time into each other, and then at the end of the advert it shows that 5-star NCAP rating, you know, for their full range, their full fleet. So, you know, at the time Renault was actually really focusing on crash test safety, but I can't help but wonder, at the lack of the B-pillar, what that means to sort of side impact safety on this vehicle. But this is an area where I'm kind of a bit of a hypocrite really, because the fact that you are up a little bit higher as well, it does give you that sort of sense of safety as well, doesn't it? Which is obviously why people go for crossovers and SUVs all the time. But I did find footage of this being moose tested, you know, where there's sort of cones, and then at high speed you've got to swerve around the cones to test how this would perform if you at high speed needed to swerve to get out of the way of something. And the Avantime did really, really well, and I can see why, because, you know, that was one of the reasons why I did buy this as well, because I was expecting it to feel a lot more like a bus. Don't get me wrong, it is like piloting a boat around, really, in terms of comparison to what we normally have on the channel, but it's surprisingly able. You know, the steering does have some authentic feel. It is surprisingly fun to drive. I'm enjoying having 3 pedals, and I know a lot of people would prefer to go for the automatic option with these cars, and obviously these also did come with a V6 option as well. I am consciously missing out quite a lot on this vehicle, but it's because it's mine and because I'm going to be doing lots of follow-up videos, and one of those is actually all of the electrical issues and the things that don't work properly on this vehicle. Who would have thought, buying an old French car that was made in really small numbers, that it would come with some electrical gremlins? So I'm going to make a whole video about that, and some other bits and pieces as well. So look, I think for the time being, for first impressions video, let's wrap this up. I do feel, like I mentioned earlier on, a slight hypocrite with having this vehicle because look, on the surface, it is a seemingly larger vehicle with a higher center of gravity, much heavier, only 2-wheel drive, that doesn't actually have that much real world practicality. It's not a particularly practical car to justify, you know, all of those compromises. And what I've just described there is any modern crossover, haven't I? And like everybody on this channel knows, I hate crossovers. But like I said at the start, I do feel like this is a vehicle that children would design for themselves. Look, let's put these windows down. Girls, is it nice being in a car that you can see everything?
Yeah.
Yeah? Because if you were in the back of a crossover with its sort of styled, tight little windows to make it look more sleek, you know, you'd be in the back of those and you'd have such limited visibility, wouldn't you? That you barely would be able to see a thing. So
Even
although
the front window.
even the front, you can see everything, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like a safari vehicle for children for your day-to-day lives, isn't it? Whether you live in the city or you're going on a little road trip or something, you know, they can soak everything in. This is the ultimate I Spy vehicle, isn't it, girls? So although in many ways this is just a ridiculous, silly car, and I'm not surprised it was a massive sales flop, it does make it, for me, the perfect secondary backup family car, doesn't it? So yeah, that is, I think, ultimately why I bought it and why I'm happy that I did. So girls, if this is a car which I think is made for children, why don't I let you girls design a wrap that we can put on the outside of it to make it really, really fun?
I know.
What do you reckon?
Yeah.
Do you want to get like big stickers all over the outside of this car?
Yeah.
What do you reckon we should stick on it?
Panda!
A panda monkey. Maybe we should have a little think, yeah? And think about how we should wrap this. What I want is I want to wrap it in a way that when we're driving it around, any children and families that we see, they all turn, point and stare and go, wow, look at that. That's what I want. I want everybody to get enjoyment from this.
Oh,
Yeah?
I know. Like Disney films. Oh, wait, I know what's really, really popular.
What?
Barbie and Elsa.
Barbie and Elsa?
Yeah, they're
Oh,
really
wow.
popular.
But what about little boys? Do they like Barbie as well?
No, they like dinosaurs.
They like dinosaurs. What, should we wrap it in dinosaurs?
No.
What is something that everybody loves, girls?
I don't know. Elsa. No, nobody likes. Not everybody likes Elsa. Boys don't like Elsa.
What about Bluey?
Yeah.
Everybody loves Bluey, don't they?
Loads of people in my class, the whole class likes Bluey.
And if you would like to see how we wrap this vehicle, and if you'd like to see the videos on all the electrical gremlins and a few other ones as well, make sure you subscribe to this channel, check out one of these other videos in the meantime, and we'll see you on the next one. Say goodbye, girls.
Bye.